So let me know before we start with any of the today's topics. Is there anyone who has not yet tried Hibernate, or for whom it is not working? Either way, you have tried but it is not working, or this. So at least today, right now, we don't have full crowd, but whoever is there, for everyone it is working fine. The first one, that is, I'll tell you the 3 stages we went in. Bootstrapping of Hibernate, which ensures that SessionFactory creation and the connection pool. Second step, from the Pojo, automatic table generation. And the third step, we just set up the Hibernate session, Hibernate framework. And when you say session.save, a record is inserted in the database. So all 3 things are working fine. Okay, great. So what we are going to do today is, we were thinking of, I hope majority has gone through it. Majority has read this, so that, the whole idea about you reading it first is, whenever I start explaining, without wasting too much time, you understand it. So what is it we are going to do for the rest of the day? This is just a 5 minutes thing. So we are going to continue to CRUD operations. If I tell you just the, yes, Akshay, I have written it down. Thanks for reminding. So this thing, what is it called? Yeah. So if you just decide that, okay, I will learn CRUD operations in Hibernate, it just takes me 10 minutes or 15 minutes to explain. Session.save, session.get, session.create query, update and delete. But that is not the Hibernate is about. You have to understand the persistence context, the concept of a L1 cache, and the whole principle or whole concept behind something called as automatic dirty checking. So you'll be definitely understanding all of that. We never do it only at API level. And another popular interview topic is entity, or you can say Pojo. Pojo is nothing but a entity. So entity state transitions. And then I want to also show you the blob handling. When I say blob handling, the same approach is for club handling, any large object handling. So this is today's plan. Let's see what all we can complete. So before I start the revision part of it, yeah, tell me, what is thread safe? It is a attribute. Attribute of which director? Page, include or taglib. It is a attribute of a page director, right? So for example, this is not to do with anything with the Hibernate. It is all to do with the JSP architecture or JSP API. So if you say %@ page, and if you don't mention, okay, before this, I'll just say this. So what is it? It is a Boolean, kind of a Boolean valued attribute. And what is the default value of Boolean valued attribute? Is it true or false? It's a true value. Have people gone through it at all? If you've not gone through it at all, you'll have, I won't say it will be difficult to understand, but better to read it on your own. So default value is true. So if at all you want to change it, then you will have to say, is thread safe equal to false? Okay, so that's a usage. But here I have already said 100% not recommended. Okay, so let's understand what it is all about. So when you say, is thread safe, the default value true, what is it you are telling the web container? I'll give you options as always. Are you telling the web container that whatever JSP you have written is inherently thread safe, or it is not thread safe? I'll repeat the question. I said, when you have used the default value, is thread safe equal to true? What is it? Have you told the container that you have written the JSP in a thread safe manner? Answer is yes. So your JSP, whatever you have written, you have taken care of thread safety. Whereas when you say, is thread safe equal to false? What is it you are telling the container? You apply the thread safety. As in, programmer has not taken care of, JSP is not thread safe. So who has to apply the thread safety? Programmer or container in this option? No, no, no. Is thread safe equal to false? Who has to apply in this condition thread safety? Container. If you're saying programmer, you're not understood it. Is thread safe equal to false means you are telling the container, I as a JSP developer, I as a JSP programmer, I have not taken care of the thread safety. My page is not thread safe. So container has to apply the thread safety. Understood the level 1 discussion? Is thread safe? Programmer has written a thread safe JSP. Is thread safe true? Is thread safe false? Programmer has not written the JSP in a thread safe manner. So container has to apply the thread safety. So if you think about it superficially, you will say this looks like a good idea. That is, you don't have to worry about thread safety is equal to applying synchronization. Container is doing it for you. But it is completely horribly wrong idea. Why? Because why this is 100% not recommended. What is the answer? I've written everything in that 2 lines or 10 lines thing. Why you should never write this? How will container apply thread safety? Tell me. What is the side effect of it when you say is thread safe equal to false? Guys, where is your reading showing me? Not difficult to handle concurrency, Anjumala. You're not putting it properly. You're not expressing yourself correctly. When you say is thread safe equal to false, how will container apply the thread safety? It will make the entire, in case of servlet, service method. In case of JSP, underscore JSP method, entire method will be synchronized. You understood that? And the moment you have synchronized service method, will it be possible for different clients to send the concurrent? Will it be possible for the web container to handle the concurrent clients? Absolutely not. While one client is being handled, if there are 10 clients, they will be added to their task will be added to the task queue and they will be all blocked. In short, in simple English, is thread safe equal to false implies zero concurrency. Okay, complete blocking, you are losing on the concurrency. That is the reason you should never touch this attribute. So when you say is thread safe equal to true, whose responsibility it is to apply synchronization, P or WC? Thread safe equal to true. Guys, you're still mixed up. Programmer, you are telling the web container, I have understood synchronization in core Java. See the dialog. And then I will apply. So I told you long back. Long back means in synchronization in core Java. The whole idea is to keep the optimal performance. You identify. See, in entire JSP service, in entire do get do post, entire method doesn't require locking. So you identify the critical section and you guard it. You wrap it in a synchronized block. Are you understanding me? So that is why is thread safe is a completely bad solution. And this was the JSP discussion. Is there an equivalent step? Is there an equivalent approach in a servlet? In short, what is it corresponding to in the servlet API? There is an interface. What is the name of the interface? There's a marker interface. What is the name of the interface in servlet API? Guys, yeah, you have to read it. When I say read it, just it is a 5 minutes read. And when you don't respond, I immediately know you've not gone through it. The name of the interface is single thread model. Take a look at it. And here, if you see, it has been deprecated as of whatever. We are in servlet almost 3.1 and all. So it has been deprecated because here servlet can handle only one request at a time. So that means one request at a time means concurrency or no concurrency? Quick question. Of course, no concurrency. And the moment this interface has no methods, what is it? Marker, functional, or ordinary interface? It's a marker interface. Just to tell the web container, it's a runtime marker, like your serializable. Later, I'll show you clonability, clonable interface and all. Just a runtime marker so that concurrency is stopped. So tell me, will you ever write a servlet class implementing single thread model interface? Yes or no? No. You are killing the concurrency. You are bringing down the performance like anything. And will you, in a JSP, will you ever make is thread self equal to false? Answer is no again, because of the same reason. That was the reading part I had asked you to do. So when I tell you to read, take me seriously. I don't tell you too many things to read. Okay. I mean, I supply a lot of read reads, but that is at your leisure whenever you feel like you read. But at least when I mention read this particular part, you are expected to read it. Okay. So that was it. Now let's have a quick revision about what is Hibernate, why Hibernate, whatever we said yesterday in a quick manner, because already I revised the whole thing in the lab. So this is like a second revision. Read. But it is worth it because it's an important topic. So what is Hibernate? Ultimate solution to manage automatic persistence in database in Java. Meaning, after writing things yesterday, maybe you got a better idea. As a Hibernate developer, do you have to go to the JDBC level, database level, and actually think in connection, prepare statements, execution of the queries? Absolutely not. You stay happily in your object world, Java world. We created the user Pojo. We configured Hibernate architecture using that SessionFactory and all that. And then we had to just say session.save. And the work of saving the state of the object into permanent manner is nothing but Java persistence. In core Java, I showed you with object streams, persistence in binary file, using object output stream, wrapping your file output stream, etc. Here you are enjoying automatic persistence in database using your ORM tool. Understood things about persistence? Saving the state of a Java object in a permanent manner in database is what you achieve through Hibernate. Yes or no? Something. First statement. Okay. So what else can you describe as a Hibernate? People ask me, what is Hibernate? It's an ORM tool. You don't have to like the same thing. If the reverse way, we will do today, the getting the data, retrieving the data. At that time, you'll see you don't have to map the result set. You will not come near the result set also. You will be at abstraction, higher level. So you don't have to map the data from the result set to the object. The object to relational mapping will all be done by Hibernate. Is it implementing? Has it implemented JPA API? 100% yes. So it is a JPA implementer. So here JPA is what? It is a part of J2E specification. What is the package for JPA? JavaX.persistence. And what is Hibernate? Hibernate is one of the implementers of JPA. So how it is identified? It's a persistence partner, or you can say it is a persistence provider. So is this the only persistence provider in the market, or are there others? There are others, but which is the most popular one, highly used one, or maximum used one is Hibernate. And later when I take you to Spring Boot framework in the last few days, you will see if you don't, Spring Boot is all about automatic. It is called as convention over configuration, COC approach. So the point is, Spring Boot does understands your needs and automatically gives you go-to. Go-to means a ready-made project, market ready, or industry ready or production ready project. So at that time also you are going to see the default persistence provider is going to be Hibernate. So like yesterday we started, and it's going to continue all throughout. Now, is it an open source framework or is it a licensed one? Open sourced. Who is the founder? Gavin King. And if you have taken a look at whatever ebooks I have supplied, there is one book, Java Persistence, Java persistence book. So that is written by the by the author, by the founder. So where I'm still into what is Hibernate. So it is an intermediary between your Java application and the database. So can Hibernate give you support in a standalone desktop-based main-based application? Yes or no? 100% yes. Can you integrate it in web application? Yes again. So if the things go as per the plan, see, every day I plan out things for you. So we might end up solving this simple optional, I'm saying optional assignment, because you have to first revise all the things. So I might show you, if time permits, in the lab, integration of Hibernate with a web application. So the point I'm trying to make is, it's not like we may or may not do it, time permitting. Today. So the point is, like, you can integrate it in web application as well. But is Hibernate, okay, let me say this. What is it Hibernate going to use to talk to database? Is it going to directly talk to the database, or via what? Via JDBC. So, of course, there is a Java transaction API. There's something naming service. But the main thing what you have learned is JDBC API. So instead of you means programmer going all the way to the JDBC level, lower level, we are at an abstraction level where all the internal details are hidden behind your org.hibernate.session, and you keep interacting with the session and let Hibernate do the detailing for you. That's the whole approach. So now, important question. So think and answer. I'm asking you the question, which of the following layers are currently Hibernate specific, as in using native Hibernate APIs? Okay, so I'm giving you three options. Three layers I'm asking you about. A DAO layer. Yesterday, I hope everyone has written at least that one register customer types. You have written Pojo, you have written Hibernate utils. So anyone wants to tell me, DAO layer, is it Hibernate specific, or is it Hibernate independent? S or I? 100% Hibernate specific. If you are not clear, just recall the import list. Which import list you are using in the DAO layer? Open your DAO layer parallelly and tell me. You are using definitely org.hibernate.SessionFactory, or you are using org.hibernate.session API. You are using org.hibernate. All these comes from org hibernate package transaction. Today you will be looking at query and so many. So 100% Hibernate specific. Okay. So this is because this is using all what? Native Hibernate API, meaning tomorrow you replace Hibernate by, let's say, iBatis. Is your DAO layer going to be same? Change or no change? Configuration, we don't use it, Prashant, there. We use it in the utils, but you are on the right track. So this is Hibernate specific. Recall your Pojo. All you have to look at is imports. Tell me, is Pojo Hibernate specific, or is it Hibernate independent, means JPA compliant? Of course, it is Hibernate independent, that is JPA compliant. So this is Hibernate. Okay, so let me say this, which is the only package we have imported. We don't import anything. That's why I told you, typically we don't use org Hibernate annotations. We use all the JPA. So the only package we use is javax.persistence for the annotation support. Correct? So it is definitely implies Hibernate independent. And you can call it as JPA compliant. And JPA is a specification followed by what? Implemented by all the vendors, including Hibernate. So if you change your persistence partner, persistence provider, change or no change in the Pojo layer, zero change. And here, again, utils is Hibernate specific. Tell me why utils is Hibernate specific. Take a look at code. You are importing your SessionFactory. The whole idea is to give you singleton immutable SessionFactory. Here, Prashant, you are using org Hibernate configuration classes and all that, etc. Okay. So is everyone clear? The project, I mean, for the next 2-3 days. Okay, let me be precise. Till I take you to Spring, as in to be precise, Spring Boot, we will be continuing with this particular picture. But with Spring Boot, you will see, we'll talk about something like JPA and later Spring Data JPA. But this is the story as of now. Why Hibernate is so popular? Why JPA is so popular? Why JPA implementers are so popular? You know, it is Hibernate, typically open source. Number of jars required is less compared to other providers. Is it okay? JDB, this is basically JDBC versus Hibernate. JDBC did not support any caching. Will Hibernate support caching? It is inherently, even when whether you want it or not. The moment you open a session from a SessionFactory, along with the session, an empty L1 cache, the level 1 cache is created and it is associated with the session. You will see the impact of session in couple of minutes. In addition to that, there is a level 2 cache, which is a SessionFactory related cache. And if you have executed some select queries and you want to cache those results, some queries you want to fire very, very frequently, you have a query level cache also. So all of it definitely leads to better performance. So out of these 3 cache, which one is implicitly enabled? L1, L2 or query? Answer is only L1. Okay. Next thing. After you come to Hibernate, if you decide, do you have to create the tables or can Hibernate automatically create it from Pojo? Hibernate can automatically do this. This is called as the forward approach, which is there is a forward approach and there is a reverse approach. So which is forward approach? From Pojo, automatic table creation is your forward approach. And the reverse engineering, it is literally called as reverse engineering approach. Maybe in some cases, your tables are ready, your ER diagrams are ready, your tables are ready and all of that, and you want to map it to Pojos. So that is your reverse engineering technique. So both approaches are like possible. I've shown you, I mean, see, today we will not enter into join. Today we'll be working on just CRUD. CRUD is the level 1. After that, you climb other levels, right? So those other levels are like association and the inheritance and all that. Anyway, so whenever I take you to multiple tables, example, topic and tutorial. One topic has multiple tutorials joined by the foreign key, etc. So at that time, you'll see simplification. Are you developing an application based on Hibernate, which is partially database independent or fully? Answer is fully. Why? Because the part which was making it database specific was SQL. Are you going to write it in Hibernate and using SQL? Answer is, if you want, there is an API, create native queries. So they have given you that option. But is it a recommended one? Of course not. So shortly, I'll show you Hibernate query language, which I just show you just one example, just one syntax, but mainly we deal with JPA compliant or Java persistence query language, which is not Hibernate specific at all. So the point is, later when I take you to Spring Boot and all, it may not support HQL directly, but it definitely supports JPQL throughout. So this is the object-oriented SQL we'll be writing. Hibernate uses internally the database dialect. I told you about that property, which is no longer required, but it is implicitly enabled. Using this database dialect is what? Just a database version, database exact details. Hibernate will convert database independent queries, which we write in a JPQL or HQL manner, into database specific SQL syntax. So you will end up writing completely portable application. And as I mentioned, in Hibernate 5 onwards, so Hibernate 6 also I showed you from Maven repository is there in alpha beta version. Soon it will come into final version. The moment it comes into the final version, then it is usable by the programmers. So, I mean, of course, there are programmers who work on alpha beta version and give the feedback, but we are not at that level. So the point is, yes, 5.x onwards, do you have to explicitly configure this database dialect property in the configuration file? You have seen you don't require it, because Hibernate will just read, or Hibernate will try to look for which property file? Hibernate configuration XML. Where it should be, don't answer to the interviewer that it should be in SRC main resources. Interviewer will say, which resources? I don't know anything about resources. So the standard answer is runtime class path. And whatever you add under SRC main Java or SRC main resources ends up, gets copied, gets compiled into, gets stored into a runtime class path. So when I make a statement, I generally like to support it. Open your folder structure. This is my work. Open your workspace, please. And open that day 9 lab or any Hibernate based project. This is your folder structure, as you can see. And here it is not showing. Okay, in the target, is it created? So I'm not able to. This is a little bit this. Anyway, I'll tell you what I wanted to show you was, I wanted to show you the actual location of Hibernate configuration XML and wanted to show you that it appears in the runtime class path. But since we have not yet built any jars, which I hope we'll do it by the end of the day using some Maven options, packaging options, then I'll show you the exact location where it gets deployed. Okay, so I mean, not now. Look, doesn't seem possible now. So this is what is the basic. And the most important thing is, see, all these things, guys, you need to know. People ask you, project is the maximum weightage, carries the maximum weightage. Of course, they start with the basic questions, core concepts and all that, and then they grill you on your project. So while choosing the project technology, somebody was asking me which backend should I use. I said it's a personal call. Whatever you find comfortable, whatever excites you, whatever interests you, wherever you follow, wherever you want to follow your career path, that is how you should select. Likewise. So when people ask you why you have chosen Hibernate, or what is the significance of Hibernate in your project, etc., so many reasons I'm telling you for justification. So read this. You know this. Some of it you have seen, some of it you will be seeing throughout. So many things we have done in the first 8 days of your JDBC or J2E. We were thinking in database tables, columns, rows, SQL queries. We had to set up the database connection by saying driver manager.get connection. We had to prepare the different type of statements, prepared statement, callable statement. One had to execute the queries. If the query was a select DQL basically, the result set was the return type. So you had to do the processing of the result set while rsc.next, if rsc.next, etc. And then we had to map it to a POJO or maybe a collection of POJOs. So all these things now you don't have to do. Once you set up Hibernate, all of this will be automatically done by Hibernate. Isn't it a solid reason of migrating from JDBC to Hibernate? Understanding things? Okay, so like I said, you have to be convinced before you learn any technology. You have to be convinced about it. Is it really good for you types? Another reason, so many reasons. In JDBC, by the way, it is possible to use the connection pool with JDBC, which is but we did not use it. Okay, so let me ask you, which is the package we used in JDBC? Java.SQL. But there is additionally another package, I mentioned it long back, javax.sql. And in javax.sql, there is an interface called as data source, and that data source is nothing but a connection pool. Okay, but what we were doing is we were using driver manager.get connection, and what was it returning? A fixed brand new connection or a connection pulled out from connection from a pool or a fixed connection? A fixed connection. But you have seen In Hibernate configuration XML, there is a connection pool property, connection pool size property. So who is the vendor who is giving us this internal connection pool? Currently Hibernate. Is it a production grade connection pool? Absolutely not. I told you yesterday all this. They tell you in console, don't use it in the production environment, etc. So at right time, we will replace it by good ones. So better ones, I mean. So, but connection pool is there. So when is this connection pool created? I've given you typically W questions. Hibernate framework booting time. But when does a Hibernate framework boots? Whenever you are creating a singleton instance of the SessionFactory. Still deeper. When are you doing it? Or when exactly it happens? You remember Hibernate utils? In Hibernate utils, what is that one-liner we write? Configuration instance dot configure dot build SessionFactory. So when you call this configure method, Hibernate looks up into runtime class path. By default, it is a runtime class path. You can change the location, by the way. I'm giving you all defaults. Hibernate configuration XML is parsed. From that, database configuration details are picked up. So, you know, in the latest version of database drivers, you don't even mention a driver class. If you recall, I have commented that property. But other three properties are required. Database contacting URL, username and password. And here, when you say the connection pool size, what will your Hibernate do? Will it create a single connection or will it create multiple connections? Okay, initially it will create a single connection because this is a maximum size. But when the client's pressure increases, when the multiple concurrent clients start demanding your down layer, will it share that one fixed connection across the multiple requests, which it cannot? So what it will do then? It will increase the connection pool size and still maintain the concurrency. Understanding or not understanding? Getting this? Okay, so that's your fixed connectivity versus connection pool. So when this happens exactly, we are going to write, we're going to continue soon, but this is just a recap or better understanding of what you did. So everyone has written a DAO layer. So when you say SessionFactory.open session and begin a transaction, at that point, database connection is pulled out. But are you directly working on this java.sql.connection? Absolutely not. We have a thin wrapper. So that connection is wrapped in which instance? Hibernate session instance, org.hibernate.session, interface referring to implementation class instance, and that is returned to the caller. Read this line twice. When I say twice, you know what I mean is important line. So, you know, you start understanding the internals a lot then. So you have to know exactly when the connection is actually pulled out and when it is wrapped into a session. Okay, so then you perform your in the try catch finally in the try block, you perform your CRUD work. If it ends into success at the end of the try block, you remember we have done the committing of the transaction tx.commit. If you come into the what is it called, catch block. So which is the exception we catch? Is it a checked exception or is it a unchecked exception we caught? It's an unchecked exception. Why? Because if you see, if anything goes wrong in Hibernate, which is the exception Hibernate will fire? Will it fire your SQL exception? Answer is no. Hibernate uses, yes, exception translation mechanism where it catches the JDBC exception and rethrows it as a unchecked Hibernate exception. When I continue after 2-3 days to Spring, you will see the same philosophy Spring doing. Spring framework will catch any specific exception and it will rethrow it as a Spring supplied unchecked exception. So all unchecked exceptions now. So coming back to the point, when it is not compulsory for you to catch the unchecked exception, means what? Compiler doesn't force the handling of the unchecked variety, but we still do the handling because we want to discard, we want to roll back the transaction. And in the catch block, After rolling back the transaction, we rethrow the exception to the caller so that caller also knows that the transaction failed. But you must be remembering, we had written a finally block also. So tell me, if you don't write a finally block, what will happen? You know the answer. I mean, answer is right here, or we discussed it. You understood my question? What will happen if you don't write, if you forget to write the finally block? The session will not close. Okay, fine. But what is that? What does it impact? The database connection, which is pulled out, will it return to the connection pool at all? That is the important statement. So session won't close is not a very satisfactory answer. The session closing not happens means pulled out connection will never return to the pool. So you have lost the reusability. So what is the maximum connection pool size you have configured, guys? 10. You'll say, okay, my database supports 100. So I'll say, okay, 100 then, fine. But after 101st client, you're definitely going to see block because all your connections are pulled out and unnecessary. They have stopped, I mean, they have finished their execution. They have finished their CRUD, but you simply forgot to return it. Okay, so never ever do this. So you can do it in an auto closable manner also, but for some reason we are doing it in an explicit manner. Reason will be clear later. This is a little heavyweight statement. So there is a peculiar term. I don't know if anyone is from electronics background in my audience, in our students, because we use the term in electronics a lot, impedance mismatch. So you don't have to, I mean, others, non-electronics guys don't have to worry. Impedance mismatch means, I mean, in this, I'm not talking in ENTC, I'm talking about the paradigm mismatch. So what it means is, see, it is very good to throw such terms in interviews. People feel impressed. Of course, don't use it if you don't understand it naturally. So what is it we are trying to say? What is it Hibernate helps you in? There are two worlds, you know. One is the object world. We are talking in Java. Later, we'll be talking in .NET. And you have a different framework, entity frameworks, etc. So you have an object world where you deal in Java objects in heap. What are the fundamental principles about your object-oriented practices? Inheritance, association, polymorphism, abstraction, etc. This is your one world, Java world or object world. And the other world you have, where you have relational database. I'm purposefully not taking Mongo NoSQL database because it's a document driven. It has a totally different discussion where you deal in tables, rows, columns, entity to entity relationship, foreign keys. If you have a many to many, you got join tables, etc. And who brings these two worlds together? If you start doing it on your own, you have you have to slog a lot. So Hibernate does this joining together. Hibernate does the important or precious job of solving impedance mismatch, solving the mismatch between two worlds. Okay. So, and like I said, we are too early in the we're just getting into Hibernate. Over time, you'll realize the meaning of this. And exception translation, I already told you, check to uncheck, plus a lot of more advantages. Over time, you'll understand. So you know about hibernation. Since I have already spent a lot of time, you do the quick reading. This part, anywhere threads are involved, I'll definitely explain. Do a vertical reading of this. Finish reading. So I'm not going to explain everything because you already know this. So when you say SessionFactory dot open session, it is going to create a session instance which wraps that pulled out connection. I will start explaining from these terms. When I say session is a lightweight object, tell me what do you understand by that? Creation of a session is a time consuming affair or is it a fast one? Slow or fast? It's a fast one because already there is a connection pool. So why there will be any time spent? So lightweight, heavyweight. Lightweight is fast. So I think you understand that. And why also? Because it is just a pulling out a connection which already exists and wrapping it in a session. It is a thread unsafe object because, I mean, not because exactly, but there's no inherently, there's no thread safety. Okay, let me say this properly. Session state can be modified. And anything which is modifiable is typically thread unsafe. So the moment you hear this, guys, people grill you on this. If you survive all the basic questions, I mean, basic core Java type questions, and you continue, then people definitely ask you detailed. So the moment you say thread unsafe, what we immediately think about is synchronization. But is there any time you will access the session object in a synchronized block or unsynchronized manner? Absolutely not required. So this is where, I mean, a beginner, or if you're not thinking enough, deeply enough, you get confused. So let me ask you, good old core Java question. When is synchronization is equal to applying thread safety required? In a single threaded or multi-threaded? Quickly. Favorite question, so I'm taking so much time. In a multi-threaded. If multiple threads are sharing the same copy, or if their multiple threads are having their own copies, sharing the same copy. You got it? So here, when you say multiple threads, guys, soon we are going to integrate this Hibernate into web application. So which thread I'm representing, I mean, which thread I'm talking about? A different request. You remember that request per thread? I'm talking about web container. Client sends a thread, client sends a request. There is a thread pool executor. A thread is pulled out to service the client request. Understood me or not? Okay. So that thread, different threads representing different requests. So when the client starts, client thread starts servicing, when your thread starts servicing client request, in that thread you will be saying SessionFactory.open session. So if you have 10 different client requests, concurrent client requests represented by 10 different threads, will they be sharing the same session object, same Hibernate session object, or they're different ones? Will they have different copy? Of course, they will have different copy. So is there any clashing? Is there any racing condition? Is there any critical section involved? Absolutely not. Are you getting me? That is why you will never use the synchronization. Thankfully, thank God for that. Thankfully for the this thing for accessing sessions. I hope you got it. Otherwise, think over it. The provider of a session is a SessionFactory. You know, it is an interface implementation classes in Hibernate jars. And the whole and sole job of a SessionFactory is to provide you with a session object so that you can work with it. There are two methods. Yesterday I started with open session. Today I will continue to get current session. And another favorite question is open session versus get current session. You'll know all of that. How many objects of SessionFactory you create? How many instances of SessionFactory you need? Answer is singleton. Exactly one copy per entire application, but per database. Anytime you don't understand, you have to think about what we did. So here, if you open your Hibernate configuration XML file, this is that SessionFactory tag, which represents your org.hibernate SessionFactory. So in one Hibernate configuration XML file, can there be one SessionFactory tag or multiple? There can be multiple, provided you are dealing with multiple databases. But if you say, no, I will have all my transactions done on, let's say, MySQL or let's say Oracle, how many SessionFactory tags per database? Exactly one. And that is what is going to give you this. That is what is going to encapsulate your connection pool using the database specific information. Making sense all the statements, whatever I'm making? Understanding the statements? Great. So does represent database. Okay, sorry, inherently thread safe because it is immutable. It's a read-only object. Once you create the SessionFactory object by saying new configuration, configure, build SessionFactory, even after that, I mean, after creating that object, if you make changes to those Hibernate configuration XML file, those changes are not applied. Exactly like a string. Once you create a string object, you cannot make the changes. It's a read-only. So inherently thread safe represents database specific configuration, including the connection pool. When you say SessionFactory, does it have any cache associated with it, which is like a global cache? One copy, entire, all sessions will be sharing that. Answer is yes, but there is a additional configuration for that. It doesn't happen automatically like your session level L1 cache. And what is the provider? Who is the provider of SessionFactory? Configuration class. And you know the whole deal. Configuration, configure, build SessionFactory. The whole and sole job of your configuration class is set up the singleton instance of a SessionFactory. And yesterday, just towards the end, I showed you the transaction API and all that. Today, you'll be learning query. Criteria query we don't do today, we do it later. So, but you'll be looking at queries, which represents your HQL, JPQL queries. So this was a look at Hibernate architecture. Since it is again, I'm saying I generally don't spend so much time in revision, but since it is such an important project technology, we are spending time so that everyone gets it. HBM to DDL is Hibernate mapping to DDL. You know the meaning. If you give the value of update, you know. It means if the corresponding table doesn't exist, create one. If one exists, continue with the existing one. So here, there is a summary picture somewhere I've drawn. Wait a second. Summary diagram. Yeah. So I'll send you this. This is really a very good summary diagram. Anytime this is updated or not, let me see. Just a second. Central configuration, Hibernate utils. Yeah, it is upgraded. I mean, it's not using all that bootstrap and all that. Other APIs, older APIs. So what are the layers? How do you how do you start? So here I've given you the layers in the core Java application, desktop-based application. Similar things have I written it for JSP Java Bean? No. So in JSP, Java Bean will fit it soon. So everything starts with a Maven local repo. Which is the folder where you have a Maven local repo, local repository? It is the folder which is Maven home.m2. Under that you have a repository. That's your Maven local repo, which we have downloaded. I hope everyone has successfully downloaded Hibernate related dependencies. Then we configured the configuration file. Then we wrote Hibernate utils to what? To ensure the singleton immutable SessionFactory instance. Then, which is the layer we generated? You don't have to create a database table, you know. So we did the POJO. So POJO is equal to model is equal to entity. And you will see soon throughout the day, you have a POJO lifecycle. POJO passes through different states. Guys, I had told you yesterday, read little bit, 2-3 paragraphs of ORG Hibernate session. They have mentioned all of this there. So which stages you are going to see? Transient, persistent. They have not talked about remote, but yes, there is a remote also. Transient, persistent, detached, remote. All these understanding is all about 4 stages. So as a Hibernate developer, you can supply the instructions to Hibernate using XML or annotations. Which is the approach we are using? Annotated POJOs or XML annotations. But if anyone asks you how you would have done it 10 years ago or okay, 5-6 years ago, whatever, answer is per POJO. Suppose you have a user POJO. Yesterday we wrote a user POJO. So you have to write user.hbm.xml. And per POJO, since you end up writing so much of XML, the efforts are too much. Instead, learn annotations. which we have from JPA. You know the reason, JPA compliance. And then you have seen which are the compulsory annotations you have to give for this ORM, for that persistence at entity class level. At ID, you can add it either at a field level or at a property level. And how does the not JVM, what is it called? Hibernate gets the property value using getter or a setter. Of course, a getter. So when you see any tutorial, you might be reading so many articles. Just say Spring Data. No, forget Spring Data. We are not there. Just Hibernate tutorial and you'll see tons of them. So refer to a good one. Anyway, so the point is, when people are talking about property level annotation, they mean a getter level annotation. Now, important project tip, because I've seen all these problems, so I'm sharing, so you don't suffer. So in your projects or in any POJOs, either you add all field level annotations, field level means over the data members, or you adopt property level. You cannot mix them, meaning 5 annotations you keep on field and 5 other on property. Doesn't work. Hibernate doesn't perform properly. Okay, so decide. And most of the times we go for field level. I'll tell you the reason. When I take you to Spring Data, I'm so sorry, Spring Boot I meant, which I keep talking about, there is a Lombok framework, not framework actually, Lombok library, I'll say. So when you see, when we add Lombok library, you're not going to write any getters, setters. It will all get generated with one annotation at the rate getter, at the rate setter. So guys, all these examples generally, I'll show you field level annotations, so that later, you don't have to make changes in POJOs. So coming back to the point, when you add at ID, which is the constraint it is adding? Primary key constraint. Everyone knows that. And then we have looked at so many optional annotations, optional but recommended. So start telling me, at table, where does it come? Class level, field level, method level, getter, property level, where? Class level. And you can supply the name of the table as per your requirement. Then you have seen add column, where you can supply name, if it is a string, varchar types, length, unique key constraints. Later you'll see not null, updatable, insertable, so many things. In short, it is a column level, mapping. Temporal is typically date and time related. But yesterday we had used something like registration date. What was the data type of registration date? In that POJO class, we had created a registration date. What was the data type? It was a local date. And since local date only holds the date, we did not need any temporal annotation. So some other time when I take the example of java.util.date, I'll show you. There is a temporal annotation, and you can tell Hibernate whether you want the type of the column as date, time, or date time. Enumeration you saw. If you don't add at enumerated annotation, what type of a column will be created for your enum in a database? For the ordinal, for the integer type, right? So since we don't want it, I'm not saying always, but yeah, in case you don't want it, you change it to at the rate enumerated and enum type as string. So string corresponds to what? The constant name. If you write only at ID, and if you don't add that generated value, who will be generating the IDs, or rather who will be supplying the IDs? Database, user, end user, or Hibernate? Answer is end user will have to supply. Programmer supply means I'll ask user that, okay, in addition to your details, give me your user ID. So it is called as assigned generator, assigned ID. In most of the cases, 99% of the cases, you won't do that. Unless and until your ID is something like, email and all that. So as a thumb rule, not a thumb rule, as a programming tip, whatever programming tips I'm giving you are all taken from Gavin King's book, Java Persistence. Okay, so what he recommends is, his word is like the final word. He's the founder of a Hibernate, guys. So you have to like completely blindly follow him. So kind of thing. So what I was saying is right. So what he suggests in his book is one column, I mean, one property, you keep it separate, which is like a long or integer and all that. I'll tell you the rule about it. And that you use it only for mapping. And suppose you have unique key constraints such as email or name or something, you have unique attribute anyway. So typically at ID, we will end up using at generated value. And the moment you use at generated value, the strategy used by default is auto. Auto means automatic, right? But if you know you are using MySQL, which is the strategy we have used yesterday? Is it an auto strategy or is it different? You know the answer. The strategy is this thing, identity. Are you getting this? And that identity corresponds to what? Nothing but an auto increment constraint. And then we have yet to look into this log. But if you don't add this annotation over the byte array or over character array, the database specific large object blob, CLOB will be created. But when you add this annotation, at least for MySQL, it will create a long blob, which will give you sufficient, which will allow you to store the sufficiently larger size files. And what about transient? When you add the add transient, will it be persisted or skipped from persistence? Answer is, it will be skipped from persistence. Means what? The corresponding column, will it be created in the database? Absolutely not. Okay, so these are the some of the annotations you have seen. When I take you to relationships, ERs, entity to entity relationships, and then associations and all that, you will learn so many more. So this was about your POJO. Which is the layer which sits above the POJO? DAO layer. And till now we were using JDBC based DAO layer. So we have migrated to, rather ported ourselves to Hibernate based DAO layer. But keep it in the back of at the back of your mind is, it is using the native API, which will replace it by JPA when we enter Spring Boot. So currently it is all Hibernate specific. So what is the good news? Whenever in the middle of night kind of a thing, when I say Hibernate based DAO layer, some things should fall in place immediately. Do you need any data members? Absolutely not. Yesterday we have written our first DAO layer. So it is like a recap. 0 data members. Do you need to provide any specific constructor to open the connection, prepare the statements, prepare the callable statements? Absolutely none. And there is no need of cleanup. So can you see the code reducing here immediately? So you directly start, of course, you start with the interface, and in the implementation class, you directly start with the CRUD methods. Understood so far? So this was the last thing we did towards the evening. So this is worth revising definitely. I mean, everything is worth revising. So what are the typical steps? What are those repetitive steps, which I call it as later a DAO template? So because they are not going to change for the next 4 to 5 days. Okay, so what is the first step? Everything starts with a session. So who is the session provider? SessionFactory. So are we getting a HTTP session from the web container, or are you getting a Hibernate session from the SessionFactory? You know the answer. Hibernate session from the SessionFactory. And you have seen the open session method. Soon we will replace it and continue with get current session. But when you say currently focus on open session, immediately when you open a session object, what is implicitly associated with it is called as persistence context. Context is what? Environment. Persistence environment where your entities, there is a term which is, you'll understand, persistent POJOs, persistent entities. So that is nothing but your L1 cache. So tell me, common sense. When you open a brand new session using SessionFactory.OpenSession, what do you think this cache will be? Empty or populated? E or P? Of course, empty. You understanding it? And later you will see when we draw the pictures, or I'll show you the diagrams which are already drawn. So you will see it is a cache of references. Like we say, it is a collection of references. It is a cache of references. Actual POJOs, actual objects are stored elsewhere in the heap. This cache is also a part of the memory, part of the heap. But like I said, it just holds the references. Now, what are the typical steps after open session? You begin a transaction. So, which is the method we use? Session.begin transaction. And then we will do the CRUD work. So which CRUD work? Yesterday, I could only take session.save and that too superficially. So here we have the session APIs in a try, catch, and finally block. So here when you say open session, begin transaction, the connection is already pulled out, wrapped in a session object. Here you perform whatever operations. If all these operations succeed, the control will come to the end of the try block where you commit the transaction. And when you commit the transaction, Hibernate performs something called as automatic dirty checking. So since that word and the term and the concept is so important, you will see a complete readme. So make a note somewhere, mental note. Everyone has to read Hibernate's automatic dirty checking. So what it means in a nutshell is, I'm not asking you to read it now, later, but it is an essential read. So what I meant is, just a second, where was I? Layers, yeah. So what we were saying is, whenever you commit the transaction, at that time, Hibernate will check the state of L1 cache. And you will see when we call session.save, there's something called as transient POJO to persistent POJO transition. All that will be explained. And now Hibernate will see that there is a new entity added in the L1 cache. Is there a corresponding record in the database? So initially when we created, was the table empty or populated? Of course, empty. So the moment container means Hibernate sees that there is a new entity added in L1 cache and there is no corresponding record in the database. Which query do you think Hibernate will automatically perform, which it performed yesterday? Of course, an insert. So you did not have to fire insert query, and that meaning or that process is called as automatic dirty checking. More on it later. In case you end up into Hibernate exception, which is an unchecked exception, roll back the transaction. And most importantly, without forgetting, close the session in a finally block. At this point, whatever, now session is getting closed. So what was associated with the session level was session level cache. So L1 cache is all destroyed, removed from the memory, and pull down database connection returns to the pool. So this is the typical interaction what we had done with her in a Hibernate based download. Understood the steps? I've not given you full internals yet, but like overall semi. And then the initial part is we are not testing it immediately with the web application. When we port this to web application, the only layer which will change is the tester, and tester will be replaced by who will be invoking the methods of the DAO layer in the web scenario? Java Bean. And Java Bean will be managed by JSP. And when I take you to full-fledged MVC, you will have servlets, JSP, and Java Bean, and servlet will manage the Java Bean, and Java Bean managing the DAO. So those are all the next things. So as far as layers involved, I'll send you this. So it is very good to keep such diagrams in front of you to have the clarity that what is it we are building or which layer we are working on. So let me give you this. I'm sending you the layers in this, which is what we just now explained. So now let us focus on session API, which was the session method, which was the method we used, session.save. So why don't you open to keep two documents open? One is the J2E docs for that JP annotation, and one is the Hibernate docs. Open, guys, both. Now for the next 2-3 days, these are the 2 documents you're going to require. And click on org Hibernate, come down, you'll find session, and here read the method, look for the method save. You can see transient instances made persistent, etc. All of this will cover soon. And here read. So this is the description. Cascading, don't worry. Cascading comes into picture only when you have related entities. That we will do start from tomorrow, not today. Just read this much. Okay, so which is the method? Whose method I'm talking about? org.hibernate.session API. And what is the argument you are passing to this method is the object. You'll say it is an object. But later means just little later, I'll tell you, it is nothing but the transient object reference. So here, don't misunderstand my statement. What is our understanding of transient keyword? Skips from persistence. But here transient object means not yet persistent. So open the code parallelly because everything has to be done code, concept, and the whole thing together. It's not like only code or only concepts. So let me start asking you questions. Open D9 lab, which will copy it into day 10.1 in a minute, but after a minute. So open that and open src main Java and open this tester, register new user. And here answer a very basic question. When this line is executed, this part of the code is executed. Just a second. So I think I can, yeah. So you know what I have highlighted. When the user instance is created here, where does it exist is the question. Your options are object heap, L1 cache, database. There is a corresponding record in the database. All of above, none of above. Only in object heap. Everyone understands it? Is this reference associated? Is this object reference added in L1 cache? Absolutely not. How can it be added? I've not even started. I've not opened the session. So this state is called as the transient state, where the object, the POJO, is not part of a L1 cache, neither the part of L1 cache, nor it has a corresponding record in the database. Okay, so this is your opening. This is my opening statement. Now click on register user. Okay, so the initial part I have already explained more than 1 hour. So begin the session, open the session, begin the transaction. Now, when you say session.save, what happens here is, here the transient POJO reference, which is just part of the, what is it called, heap, here it is added in the L1 cache. So the save method simply adds the transient POJO reference into L1 cache, making it persistent. But at this point, when this session.save method is executed, now again the same options. This object is part of Java heap, option 1, part of L1 associated with L1 cache, option 2, and the corresponding record exists in database, all 3 options. So after executing this line, which options? All of above, none of above, and all that. So both the options, 1 and 2. Guys, it is already part of heap. Are you understanding? So only thing is that object's reference is added in L1 cache. But is there the, okay, let me say it in simple English. Is insert query fired so far or not yet? Answer is not yet. How you are going to prove this? We are going to add a breakpoint in a minute and we are going to confirm. Okay, so confirmation, don't worry, we'll confirm. So so it is a part of L1 cache, and 100% such a reference, such an entity which is part of L1 cache, such a POJO, such an entity is called as persistent. But when is this automatic dirty checking? When is this synchronizing state of L1 cache to that of database happens? Tell me. Upon commit. So when you call commit, Hibernate checks, are there any new entities in L1 cache? What is the answer? Is it going to find any new entities in L1 cache which doesn't have a corresponding record? No, you are saying. Guys, where is your attention? Or is it our English problem as usual? I said, okay, I have to rewind when majority gives me a wrong answer. Guys, when I open the session, tell me, L1 cache, empty or populated? Quickly. Of course, empty. But when you say session.save, what is added into L1 cache? The transient POJO becomes persistent, means the POJO reference is added into the L1 cache. I'm going to show you the picture in a minute. Okay. So now tell me, at this point, sorry, nothing happens at this point, just the entity becomes from transient to persistent, part of L1 cache. But has it gained the database identity here? Means, has the insertion of record happened so far? No. So now I asked you, who will perform what and when? This statement I'll be uttering at least 100 times a day. Hibernate will perform automatic dirty checking upon commit. So what is that automatic dirty checking? I'll make you read it in a minute. I mean, part of it. It is the process of syncing up. So I'll ask you the question again. At this point, is Hibernate finding a new entity which in the L1 cache, which does not have the corresponding record in the database? Is everyone saying yes globally now? People were saying no earlier. So I was worried like. So of course there is a new entity which doesn't have the corresponding record. So which query Hibernate will call automatically? Which DML? Of course, insert query to sync up the state of the L1 cache to that of the database. Okay, so let me send you the most important readme right away. Automatic dirty checking. And you 100% read it. So I'll not make you read the whole thing because I mean, that is your reading homework later. Here, what is it? It is performed by any JPA vendor. Today we are in JPA vendor Hibernate. So I'm saying Hibernate's automatic dirty checking. It is the same process of automatically updating the database with the changes to persistent object. But where are those persistent objects? In the L1 cache. When the session is flushed. When is session flushed? Upon transaction is known as automatic dirty checking. So syncing up state of L1 cache to that of database is performed automatically by the container as in Hibernate. So that is what is the most, strongest point of Hibernate. So when will Hibernate enter the persistent state? So there are a lot of triggers. You don't know all of it. You just know one method out of many. So tell me, when I say session.save, what goes in? What is the argument of a save method? Don't say object. I know it is object. I was worried. Guys, give me a better answer than that. I want an adjective. Adjective, you understand. Describing word. Give me the adjective. Transient POJO reference. User is not adjective, come on. Transient POJO reference. What goes in as the argument to the save method is the transient POJO reference. And that transient POJO reference or that transient entity reference is simply copied into L1 cache, making it persistent. And then when you say tx.commit, transaction commit, Hibernate will perform the automatic dirty checking. And those changes will be propagated. Those changes will be carried forward to the database. So pictures say better than words. So here, okay, first I'll show you the Pujo state. There are so many diagrams. Some of them I've already shared yesterday. Some of them could be new. So when you talk about interview preparation of Hibernate, keep such things in front of you. So what I'm talking about is Hibernate Pujo is equal to entity states. So how many states you have to survive? How many states your projects can transition into? Only 4. And out of 4, I'm just showing you 2 currently. So one is transient, one is persistent, one is detached, one is removed. Okay, so these are the names of the states. And what are the 2 key questions based on which you can decide the state of the Pujo? The 2 key questions are, you have to ask yourself, is a particular Pujo part of L1 cache? Question number 1. And what is the next question? Does it have the corresponding database record? Does it have the database identity? Is the second question. So let's start doing it. When you talk about, I'll send you this table also. I mean, currently I'm anyway explaining. When you talk about transient Pujo, is it a part of L1 cache? You know, I mean, don't say because I have written no. I've already explained where it is not a part of L1 cache and it does not have a corresponding record. Then where does the transient entity sit? What is it part of? What is the transient entity part of? Only the heap. Absolutely correct. Okay. So that's your transient. Next one, transient to persistent transition. So can you tell me which is the method we used to make your transient entity persistent? Save. So one of the thing is transient to persistent transition is via save. Actually, there are 4 methods: save, persist, save or update, and merge. So later the differences. But see, understand me. So when you say session.save, will it become the part of L1 cache? 100% yes. Persistent entities are 100% part of entity level cache. I mean, session level cache, L1 cache. But is it immediately? Is the insert query fired automatic immediately? Answer is no. So transient to persistent entities, they will gain the database identity is equal to insert query will be fired only after commit. So do the persistent entities, when you go from transient to persistent, immediately do they have the database identity, database record? What is the answer? Yes or no? Answer is no. Okay, so right now you don't know get load. I mean, all those things will happen today. So the point is, this is the transition I was talking about. So let me ask you immediately a question confirming your understanding. So I'll still not ask you to make a copy. Or okay, why don't we make a copy? So it will give you a break also from this theoretical discussion. Close everything. I've given you yesterday 2 revisions already. I mean, in the lab also. So now guys, don't waste time creating everything from scratch. It's up too much time. So simply pick up your own lab copy, or if you don't, I mean, you should be having, and make a copy into D10.1 class or something. So I'm saying D9 lab, Control C, Control V. I'm starting the D10 series. This will be all CRUD, all basics. Today we are covering the basic half of Hibernate. Tomorrow the advanced part. So so after you make a copy, let me just close. There are too many projects around. Just a second. Don't close the server projects ever. Okay, so let me just keep some of them. Server projects never open, never close. Okay, so where are we? Day 10.1. So here, first open pom.xml and globally replace day 9 lab by day 10.1. I mean, whatever name you have given. So how do you globally replace? Control F. And here I want to replace it by my project name, artifact ID, the final name, the jar creation name, everything I'm replacing. Say replace all. This otherwise, I mean, it doesn't hurt you really, but later you might feel confused which project and all that. So this is it. So I think we are okay with the rest of it. You should not have any red crosses, nothing provided. And of course you say save. In most of the cases, I don't know whether you noticed your progress bar. Whenever you make the changes in the pom.xml, by default, it gets updated. But you never trust the ID. So here, anytime you make a change, what is it you should do, guys? Tell me. Right click, Maven, update the project, and it will pick up the current project to be updated. And if you see sometimes the updates are not working, there is always a force update checkbox. Okay, that. So 100% the entries which you have made in the pom.xml are applied on your current project. Done, everyone? Done this? Okay, close. Now I'm asking you important question. This wasn't important. This was just IDE stuff. Okay, so open the DAO layer and I'll start asking you questions. So let me ask you a question here. Can you tell me what is the state of a user here? Your choices are transient or persistent. This is how we learn Hibernate. And this is what will make you prepare ready for interviews. Trust me on that. So of course it is transient, a state. Which means what? Neither the part of not in L1 cache, there's no L1 cache yet created, not in database. Corresponding record doesn't exist, exists only in heap. Are we good? So user object only exists in heap, right? Now you do this. So when you say open session followed by begin, generally with open session only, but after begin transaction, 100% session object created with populated cache or empty cache, empty L1 cache. Soon I'm going to show you pictures which describe all this. Okay, so I hope you can visualize this. Now tell me, after this line is executed, what is the state of user entity, user pojo, whatever? Is it transient or is it persistent? The state is 100% persistent. So when I say persistent, what does it imply? Is it a part of L1 cache? Is the POJO reference added in L1 cache? Yes, it is a part. I'll write it better in a better manner. It's reference. I'll say POJO reference added in L1 cache. Like you remember our collection types. You add a reference. So like suppose I have a list dot add a reference that way. So L1 cache, special memory, part of a heap. POJO reference added in L1 cache. But is it a part of database yet? Is the insert query fired yet? 100% not in database still. So that was that persistent column. You know, when you go from transient to persistent, when you say save, later save or update or persist or merge or whatever, it is simply added in L1 cache, but not in database. Now I'll rewrite this statement formally. Who will perform what and when? So the answer is, like I said, I'll be saying it 100 times today. Hibernate performs. What it performs? Automatic dirty checking. So take a pause here. What is dirty? As far as database is concerned, dirty means modified. Dirty property means property is modified. Dirty state means state is modified. Okay. So when I say automatic dirty checking, your container is equal to Hibernate will check. Are there any changes? Is there any disparity, difference between state of L1 cache and that of a database? So Hibernate performs automatic dirty checking when at the time of commit. Is there any way to explicitly tell Hibernate to perform the dirty checking? There is a method session.flush. But will you ever need it? Will you, I mean, ever is a strong word, but will you generally need to call in our this thing, session.flush? Answer is not really. Because when container is doing it automatically, why do you want to extra add the words, right? It is like saying somebody was asking me, example, analogy, switching context. In EL syntax, if I have got a getter such as get topics, do I call dot topics or do I call get topics with a parenthesis? Of course, both will work, but which is easier? Dot topics. Are you understanding my point? So the point is, if your Hibernate, coming back on the track, if your Hibernate is automatically going to perform the commit, as in syncing up this dirty checking, why do you want to trouble yourself by saying session.flush? Of course, in advanced things, there are scenarios where you require, but currently not. So at commit, Hibernate performs automatic dirty checking at commit. Oh, so here, and what it implies or what it results, I'll say this properly, results into what? Firing a DML. And which DML here? Since it is not like the state of the entity is changed. It is not like there is a corresponding record and all it needs to just update or delete. It's not that. So which query will be fired? Insert query will be fired. So this is what is the important most part of your Hibernate. Okay. So you have committed the transaction. Done. Now the control comes here. And at this point, if I ask you, what is the state of the user? Listen to the question. All this makes, increases your interest, makes you clearer about the internals and all that. Okay. Also, anyone wants to tell me, what will you label the state of the user? Transient or persistent or none of above? People are saying persistent. What is some of you are saying transient? Answer is none of above. Here the state is detached. So enter detached. I'll tell you. See this. How can you say? I'm talking to those who are saying persistent. Persistent means it has to be the part of L1 cache. Guys, can you tell me the line number where the L1 cache is destroyed? Give me the line number in my code where the L1 cache is gone. 20. Did I read it wrongly or you are saying wrongly? 20 is wrong answer. Come on. What are you saying? So here pulled out connection returns to the pool. Before that much, so many things happens. When you say session closing, what is associated with the session? L1 cache. Better known, not better or worse, but known also as persistence context. The environment in your persistent entities were kept. Is your persistent context L1 cache is gone. Gone is destroyed. Okay. Pulled out connection returns to the pool, closing the session. Okay. So this is what it is. So think again. If I say L1 cache is gone, can you really say that user entity is persistent? No. So see the transition. Just a second. So here, it cannot be a persistent because yes, now it has got a database identity, fine, but it is no longer a part of L1 cache. L1 cache is gone. Some of you are saying transient. How can it be transient? It is not a part of L1 cache, agreed. But does it have the corresponding record in the database or that is deleted? Yes, please. I said after commit, is it having a database identity or gone? Of course, there is a record. Check your database. It will be there. So what is the state we are talking about? Is your entity gone from the database or gone from the L1 cache? Gone from the L1 cache. It is decoupled, detached, disassociated from L1 cache, but not gone from the database. And such a state is called as detached Mojo. Such a state is called as detached. So I'll send you this in a couple of minutes. So all this is based upon, is it a part of L1 cache and is it having a database identity? So transient, both knows. Persistent, this I have not yet explained. I have not reached there. So persistent, yes, it is a part of L1 cache. But when you say simply session.save, incurring transient to persistent transition, it will gain, will means future. It will gain the database identity once you say commit. Till then, no insertion. And the moment After session.save, when you say commit and followed by session closing, session is gone. Associated session level cache, L1 cache is gone. Database connection returned to the pool. So this entity is no longer decoupled, detached from L1 cache, but very much it is having the corresponding database existence database record. So it is called as detached from L1 cache. So now agreed with me? What is the state? It is neither transient nor persistent. It is detached. And what are you sending? You are sending the details of the detached entity to the caller. So that tells you, that gives you some idea about three states. I'm not saying full idea, some idea. So transient, here it became persistent, but not a part of this thing, database yet. And here it became detached. So yet another way of looking at it. All these are super important to your project also and project interviews also. So this is another way of looking at it. Everything revolves around four states: transient, persistent, detached, and removed. Okay, start. Have I covered the entire transition? This absolutely not. We just covered one method out of many. So here, Java object doesn't have any life. In short, user object is not created. Nothing. For on condition. Then we use the keyword new. User is equal to new user, email, name, password, etc. So what is it? Where does such an entity, where does such a POJO exist? In Java heap, in L1 cache, or in database? Only in heap. So what will you label it? Transient. Everyone with me? So we have created a new POJO, which is no longer, which is not yet existing in the L1 cache, doesn't have a database record. So it is transient. Transient here means not yet persistent. Which are the methods which can make transient entity persistent? There are 4 of them: save, save or update, persist, merge. So for our practical, this save and persist are important. Anyway, I'll talk about it later. So currently focus on save. But when you say session.save, is the record immediately added in the database? Of course not. So the entity becomes persistent, and such a persistent entity will gain the database identity. Record will be inserted after commit. But what is the trigger for persistent entity to become detached? Don't tell me evict and clear. You don't know about eviction and clearing. So the trigger you have seen is closing of the session. So when the session is closing here, what will happen to those persistent entities? They will be removed from L1 cache. L1 cache is gone. So such an entity which is not a part of L1 cache but has a database existence is nothing but detached. So these are the 3 transitions you have seen just with save method and session closing. Understood 5-10%? This is just a beginning. I told you. Now I can say that, okay, I'm giving you internals. No, I was not giving you internals yesterday. So more diagrams, more things. You take up. I'm not at all saying you have to look at all the diagrams. Whatever you understand, whatever you like is best for me. If you say I don't understand any of you, but any of what you're saying, but I like the tutorial or article from net, go ahead and read it. As long as you understand, it is all good. So the next thing means same thing, but in a different manner. So here. So when I say client, okay, what is it I'm drawn here is the L1 cache. So in the beginning, when you say SessionFactory.open session, cache is all empty. After that, client comes in. So currently I don't have a web client, I just have a tester. So tester is calling the down layer method where we say open session. And when the session is opened, it is associated with the L1 cache all empty. So here, read this. I written lot of things in detail. So when you open the session, implicitly L1 cache, initially empty. So what is it cache? What is it holder of? It is going to be holder of, cache of, storage of persistent POJOs. So So this is your original picture, all empty. I mean, I have drawn it, so imagine that it was empty. Now, when you say session.save, what will it be? Empty or populate? I mean, empty or non-empty? Of course, non-empty. So this user POJO reference, a persistent POJO reference, gets added into L1 cache, part of L1 cache, but not yet in database. So if all goes well and you come to the control comes to the commit. So when you say transaction.commit, who performs what and when? Hibernate performs the automatic dirty checking. Here it finds that maybe there were earlier 4 users and this is a new entity. So Hibernate sees that for this particular POJO, there is no corresponding record. So which query it will fire naturally? Insert query to synchronize the state of the L1 cache with database. And so at this point, the insert query will be fired and this particular entity, this particular persistent entity will have the database existence, will have the corresponding record. And when you close the session explicitly, L1 cache is gone. POJO reference is decoupled, detached from L1 cache. But of course, this record is not removed from the database. So what is such a state of a POJO called? Is detached. So that is your transient, persistent, and detached. And like I keep encouraging you, it is not compulsory that you have to understand with these pictures. Anything you pick up and you understand is good enough for me. So let me send you all this diagrams. Just let me say, yeah, I'll just I'll just make a zip of it. Anyway, I'm going to share all of this. Shall I'm just checking. Wait 1 sec. We'll just create the whole. Why send it in pieces? This will be properly uploaded on Google Drive, so don't worry about that in today's data. So, but today when I tell you that, okay, open this diagram, open this README, it's better to keep it handy. Yeah, so take it whenever it is available and you can refer to this. So the important diagrams today you must visit or READMEs must visit is, one is automatic dirty checking, and we are soon going to enter Hibernate Session API much more. We just covered save yesterday, but I wanted to give you the concepts as well. And the diagrams which are important are Hibernate internals, this whiteboard which I explained, POJO lifecycle, and POJO states. And of course, all run are important ones. So now let us do some confirmation. Otherwise, how will you trust whatever we are saying is correct or wrong? So guys, now add a breakpoint. Where you add a breakpoint, I'll tell you where you add a breakpoint. You add a breakpoint on commit. Everyone knows how to add a breakpoint. So put a breakpoint on this, toggle a breakpoint. I want to show you whatever I said, whatever we said is correct or not. Added a breakpoint on commit. So your code is going to stop on before commit, right? Done. Can I continue the debugging? Okay. So now go to the tester, A10.1 tester. If you have copied from my project, everyone, that goes without saying. First thing you are going to edit is Hibernate configuration. Change it to your password, change it to your username. And I hope everyone already has this database DAC22. I mean, URL will be the same. It is the username and the password you have to edit. Done all of that? Can we continue? Otherwise, unnecessarily you'll get into exceptions. Okay, so now, which one? Yeah, right click on register new user. Don't say run as, say debug as. There's no server and all that. So don't say debug on server, debug as Java application. Reach here, register new user, debug as Java application. If you have a server-side application, I would have said debug on server. So we already have a record, I guess, yesterday. So we're just adding a one more. If check always if your service MySQL SQL service is up and running by launching either MySQL Workbench or MySQL command line client. Without that, don't test. Use that. And what else we wanted to say was, yeah, select this thing, users table. So we already have one record inserted. Let us add more users. You can add your own, whatever favorite names and all. Validation part we will do when we integrate this into a web application. We'll confirm, check, password and confirm password is same or not. Am I correct? Name, email, password, confirm password, user role. Let's say customer. We have customer, I hope. Registration amount, the registration date. Don't forget the 0 prefix. If you want, I can always give you the data. I just don't want you to make mistakes in the inputs so that things will fail. Okay. So where is the code stopped? Code is stopped before commit. But do you see something here? Insert query already. So you must be wondering, whatever time we spent on understanding is all gone waste. Absolutely not. Hibernate wants to insert the query. But please go to the database and tell me, is the record inserted or not yet inserted? Has the persistent entity gained the database existence or not yet? 100% not yet. Are you getting it? That's the whole understanding part. So don't get confused or don't get misled by what you see. Here it has a plan because it has a new entity, it wants to insert the query, but actual merging means what? Syncing up, propagating the changes from element to database not yet happened. So you can say switch. If you want, you can say switch switch from Java to debugging perspective. The code is waiting here. Everyone understood with confirmation whatever I was trying to say for last half an hour or whatever. So when you say session.save, your entity is simply copied. Your entity becomes a part of L1 cache, but not yet part of database. So all I want to do is now you can simply say resume. Okay, forget resume. You say F6, function key F6. It will just press through, pass through. And here, check. Tell me, has the persistent entity now gained the database existence? Is the record inserted? So this is the way, guys, you should connect the internals with the concepts and the hands-on or whatever. Okay. So rest of the thing now you can say, can you see this button here, resume, F8, basically. So that was the main thing I wanted to prove as in confirm. And who is generating this ID? Of course, Hibernate with the help of underlying database in that auto increment manner, and that is being returned to the caller. So understood at least 10-20% regarding transient, persistent, and detached states of your Pojo. Removed is yet later. We have not yet gone to the deletion. So that will happen later. Okay, now the small part, and then we'll proceed to something more. So you can remove this thing if you want. You can toggle, clear remove the breakpoint. That the only point was that. Now something else. Yeah. So another popular question. Is it a mandatory specification? Open the Pojo. Okay, first of all, you can change the perspective from debug to Java again. So you'll start getting shortcuts and all properly. So now I have a statement to make before we continue with some more APIs. So this is my Pojo here. So the favorite question is, I'll give it in writing since it is so popular. Is it compulsory? Is it mandatory? As per Hibernate specification, Hibernate or JPA specs, to make Pojo class serializable. So question, popularly asked, is it compulsory as per the Hibernate or even its JPA specification to make the Pojo class serializable to achieve persistence? It's a Boolean question. What is your answer to that? Is it compulsory to make Pojo class implement serializable interface? Yes or no? Answer is 100% no. Where our class has implemented serializable, but things are working beautifully. Absolutely well. Absolutely no. So, but there is a corollary, there is a other part. But is it mandatory to make the unique ID property? Is it mandatory for the data type of unique ID property to be serializable? 100% yes. So I'll give you in writing. Yesterday, somebody was asking me a question on composite primary key. And I told him or her, I don't remember, him, I guess, that, okay, it is a ahead of topic. So when I take you to creation of one example or ready-made demo, composite primary key, guys, it will be a custom key. Like in maps, you can have custom keys. So we will write a separate class such as my primary key or composite primary key, and that will have to implement serializable. And then again, hash code equals all the full contract. So that is little later, but remember that. So whether it is a simple primary key or later composite primary key using some embeddable classes, it has to be serializable. So add that word, but the data type of primary key, let it be a simple or let it be a composite, we don't care. Let it be any, but the data type of a primary key, which is a unique field or a combination of unique fields, combination of fields must be serializable. Must be serializable means everyone understands that class has to implement serializability. Must be serializable. So is it compulsory? Answer is yes, it is compulsory. So your Pojo class did not implement serializable. If you see the articles on the net, some of them create. But if whatever is not compulsory, why should we do that? So we won't do that. But the property, the ID property, unique ID property must be serializable. So let me ask you, is integer class, as in wrapper class, has it implemented serializable interface? Very much yes. So no issues. It works nicely. It works completely. But tomorrow, if you change it, don't change it. I'm just asking you a question. If you change it to int, and of course I make the changes to those getters and setters, will it still work or will it stop to, will it work or will it not? Let me see what you're saying. Answer is wrong. Guys, it will still work. I'll tell you why. You remember something called as auto boxing. So auto boxing will make it from int to integer. So then you will say why you are insisting all of that. Again, the quoter or the quote I'm taking, I'm directly quoting Gavin King, nothing of my own. So he says in his book, precious book, valuable book, as far as possible, avoid this auto boxing, avoid these primitive types, because Hibernate is going to decide whether your Pojo is, what is it, detached or persistent and all that based on this property. This is little bit ahead of time. When I reach there, I'll explain. So I'll repeat my last statement again. If you rewrite, if you can play in the lab or you can explore this. So when you make it int, make all the changes. Getters, setters, don't make it integer based, make it int based. 100% it will work. But as per the Gavin King suggestion, explicitly make it serializable. So there is no auto boxing, auto unboxing involved. The property itself has implemented the serializability. So as always, what is the proof of whatever I'm saying is correct or not? Open the API and tell me, what is the return type of the save method? You have the answer in front of you, serializable. So what does a save method return? The generated identifier. And the moment you see the return type as serializable, I hope it is confirmation enough. Your ID property must be serializable. Making sense? So I'll just do a 1 minute recap. What is compulsory? Is it compulsory to make your Pojo classes serializable? Is it mandatory to make your Pojo serializable? Absolutely not. But is it compulsory to make the unique ID property, simple or composite primary key, implement serializable? 100% yes. Will the POJOs will Hibernate also manage the persistence with the primitive types such as int and long and all? Yes, thanks to autoboxing. But little later I'll tell you. Instead of doing this primitive types where the default values can be zeros and all, Hibernate prefers doing the comparison with null type of references. Meaning, this is again little ahead of time. If you don't set the value of user ID, what will be the default value of user ID? 0 or null? Null. And Hibernate does this null checking to decide so many things. Okay. So as per the founder, we will always use either integer or later in your project, if you want, you can use the long as a wrapper type of the type long, and it will still work. Or rather, that is the way it is what you say recommended. Okay, so currently I'm sticking to integer. So all these were simple points. Let me say this, what I can take in the small time remaining. Okay, so this was your open session and get current session. But as we progress means in the next step, are we going to continue with this SessionFactory.OpenSession API, or are we going to replace it by something? Answer is we are going to replace it by something. So that replacement is get current session. Just show you that. I've given you the whole help, right? Good for that. I mean, I don't have to I was thinking that what to share now. So here, so open Hibernate Session API, please. The README. It's a long document. And wait a second. These are the first ones, but somewhere in detail, I hope I have explained. Yeah. So look for a word called as detailed API. I've shown it in a flowchartish manner also and the text manner also. So there are two methods of SessionFactory to get the session object. Which one you know? You know open session. Which one are we discussing before the break? Get current session. So read this and I'll explain. So you read it from here, or like me, if you prefer the diagrams, there is a diagram also, open session versus get current session. So I'm going to explain it with the diagram. There is already a write-up there. So understand, and we'll confirm it in a minute and we'll stop for a break. So here, both are what is common between both? Both are the SessionFactory methods and both will return you the Hibernate session object. Then what is the difference? Read this branch because you already know this. So irrespective of the fact, that is independent of the fact whether session exists or not. The moment you say SessionFactory.OpenSession, SessionFactory doesn't care. It doesn't even check whether there is any open session associated with the current thread. It doesn't care at all. It doesn't check at all. It will create a brand new session object and return it to the caller. And when I say brand new session object, of course, it will have an empty L1 cache and all that, and the whole thing will start. So let me ask you in numbers as always. If I call, which is what we are going to do in a minute. If I call, for example, SessionFactory.OpenSession, let's say 10 times, 10 is just a number. So what will it return? Will it return me the 10 session objects, S1, S2, S3, S10, or will it return me the same session object? Same or different? Understood me perfectly? You are absolutely right. So 100% new session object. Okay. And what is the side effect? What is the other fact? Does this session opened via open session gets closed up implicitly, or you have to explicitly close it? Answer is you have to explicitly close it. You have seen it all. So programmer must close it explicitly using something like either auto closable or using the one I showed you, finally block, because I wanted to mention this. So anytime you use open session, programmer will have to explicitly call session.close, and then only that pulled out connection returns to the pool, L1 cache is destroyed, and session is cleaned up. Session is closed. Whereas, come to the counterpart, come to the parallel API, peer API. So when you say, which is what we are going to use throughout, till I take you to Spring Boot or something. Okay, so when you say SessionFactory.get current session, will your Hibernate blindly create a session or will it check? Answer is it checks. So here, now you'll know that property. You remember there is a property in Hibernate configuration XML, current session context class. And we have given the value as thread. So Hibernate will check, is there an existing Hibernate session? I'm not talking in HTTP. Hibernate session associated with this thread. If the answer is yes, will it create the, what is it called, new session object, or will it return you the existing one? If the session already exists bound to the current thread, of course, it will return you the existing session object. But if there is no session object existing for a current thread, for the current invocation, a new session object is created and returned. So if I call in a DAO layer, for example, sf.getCurrentSession 10 times, same question I'm asking. So what will it return? Will it return 10 different session objects, or will it end up giving the same session object, the same one? When will be the session actually open created? For the first invocation, because there was no session earlier. So the session will be created, and all the rest 9 invocation will end up giving the same. And the best news is, the whole thing is code reduction. If you have got the current session, if you have opened the session using get current session, do you have to explicitly call close? Absolutely not. Session is automatically closed upon the transaction boundary. And which is the transaction boundary? Transaction boundary means what? When the transaction gets over. So in success case, it is commit. In failure case, it is rollback. So either in this thing, what is it? Commit or rollback, the session will be automatically closed. So which is the one we are going to use, or which is the one your Spring container and all the frameworks use, is basically get current session. So only one example I wrote on open session, just to tell you that, okay, there is such an API, but all other examples we are going to build on get current session. So I was going to write a code, but looking at time, I don't want to delay your break. Every day, last 2-3 days, I've been delaying your breaks. Not today, don't worry. So let me ask you last question, and you are free to go. This behavior, SessionFactory.getCurrentSession, does it remind you of anything, or it doesn't? I hope the answer is yes. I said that this particular behavior, SessionFactory.getCurrentSession, does it remind you of anything? Not thread pool this one, Anshmala. Not this thing. Try again. What does this whole discussion, this discussion doesn't remind you of anything? Generally, I get an answer at this point, guys. Of course. HTTP session. What else? You remember? We say, in servlet days, we used to say last week, request.get session. In JSPs, you don't require, because JSPs implicitly get the session object. But in servlets, we used to say request.get session. So was web container stupid enough, dumb enough to give you the brand new session object all the time? Or was it checking? Of course, it was checking. What it was checking? Request.get cookies, etc. It was finding whether it is a new user, whether there is an existing session for this object. If yes, it was returning the session object, which was already populated with attributes. If it is a first time request, first time user, it was creating a new one. Are you understanding the analogy? It's 100% same. There, web container was managing the HTTP session in this manner. Here, your SessionFactory Hibernate will do the similar handling using get current session. So we are taking a break here, of course. So I almost spent 2 hours in just talking, not doing much. So rest of the 2 hours, I mean, after the break, whatever time, pure hands-on. As in, we will try things. We'll start with open session versus get current session. And just to give you heads up, we have the whole day. We are going to spend on all CRUD operations. And already there is a whole write-up here. We will follow the sequence and I'll make you the basic Hibernate ready. As in, by the end of the day, you should all feel confidence in, okay, I can manage the Hibernate CRUD operations easily. And then tomorrow we'll take you to advanced half. That will be all. See you at 11:10. Okay, please come back in time so you don't miss out on anything. That will be all.